All right, so we got a lot to get into today. Hey, YouTube, how y'all doing? Hope everybody's doing okay. Okay, we got some news to get into today. Before we get back to post-traumatic slave syndrome, that's what we're going to be talking about in the second hour of the show. And mainly the reason we're going to be talking about post-traumatic slave syndrome, other than the fact that this was a book club that we started in February. Was it? It was February, you said, yes. That we started in February, that frankly it has just taken us several months to get through. In between the introduction, chapters 1 and 2 of post-traumatic slave syndrome, and now, which we did in February and March, we done talked to Dr. Joy DeGroot, we done had conversations, but there's some things in the third chapter of post-traumatic slave syndrome that I really want to sit in today, because it's going to matter for what's happening internationally, and it's going to matter for what's happening across the globe. So lots to get into today, and so let's just sort of slow down. We're going to ease into it a little bit. Let me start, of course, by saying thank y'all to those of you who've been downloading the podcast. Y'all was really feeling this fugitive slave law series that we did this week. I appreciate that. Make sure you download, subscribe, share the podcast. Lurie breaks it down everywhere where you get podcasts. We had been looking at the fugitive slave laws and how ICE patrollers ain't nothing but some modern day slave catchers. And then on Wednesday, we looked at what it means when two families, American families, have their houses busted up into and then have no recourse, similar to what was happening during the fugitive slave era. So thank you to those of you who have been slaving. You know, I shouldn't call it the fugitive slave era. The era in which Africans were trying to be free and the whites would not allow it. That's a much longer name for an era, but I think it's more factually appropriate. So we got a lot to get to today. That's really going to sort of solidify much of what has been happening and much of what we've been dealing with. Today is May Day. First of all, let's start there. Shout out to all the folks who are part of a union. Shout out to the PSC CUNY union. That's my union. I'm a union sister. I've been a union sister ever since I've been in a position where there is unions. I have been a participant and a supporter of the union. But May Day is the 1st of May, also known as Law Day. We're going to talk about that a little bit too. But May Day is basically a time when there is an acknowledgement of the very serious struggles that laborers, people, workers had to engage in order to produce equity in the workplace, right? So, and prior to the commercial break, I was sharing with the SiriusXM audience that one of the challenges that we have now when it comes to how we work and how we labor, and YouTube, y'all don't know this, but every day we do a segment called Moment of Gratitude. Some of the Moment of Gratitude clips are actually on the YouTube page. You can get a sense as to what that is, but we deal with very heavy topics on the show every single day. So we start every day with a moment of gratitude as a point of inspiration to sort of help us tap into our power. And the quote that we had for today's moment of gratitude by Nicola Jane Hobbs was the following quote: instead of asking, have I worked hard enough to deserve rest, I started asking, have I rested enough to do my most loving, meaningful work? And then we had like a whole breathing exercise that we do together. And we were focusing on the shifting of the paradigm, because for so many of us, particularly in America, the idea is I got to work really hard, then I can rest, as opposed to recognizing that when you are rested, when you are replenished, you're able to do the most powerful work, the most meaningful work, the most loving, purpose-driven and connected work that is out there. So that's sort of how we were approaching it. But in the course of the moment of gratitude segment this morning, one of the things I was talking about as well was that everything that we in this country understand about labor, everything that we sort of use to shape our approach to work and being in the workforce, is rooted in slavery. And we talked a little bit, and this is going to be important for the May Day component of this conversation. We spoke a little bit about the fact that, quite frankly, the only reason we have a 5-day work week is because unions had to fight for it. There was a time when you were working 6-7 days a week. And that was happening because for hundreds of years, this country had a labor force that they could force to work sun up to sundown 7 days a week. Right. There was a time when unions had to fight for an 8-hour workday, because you would be working from 16 hours a day, because as I said earlier, who else was working like from sun up to sundown? Enslaved Africans. The idea that you would not be able to be forced by your boss to go, as I mentioned earlier this week, in the pre-union days, pre-FDR Social Security days, if you worked at a chemical factory, I don't even know, where are the chemical factories at? If you worked at a very dangerous factory, an assembly line, let's say it's an assembly line, and your boss were telling you, hey man, I'm gonna need you to go in that chicken head cutter offer, because this is a chicken head cutting off plant, and I'm gonna need you to fix the machine. And you knew it was dangerous, the boss knew it was dangerous, but the boss is the boss, kind of like the overseer was the overseer. So when the overseer told you to do something as an enslaved African, you was gonna do it. Meat packers, thank you. I just saw it in the chat, meat packers. You in a meat packing factory. I feel like my high school son would have fun with that phrase because that's what the kids do. We're going to move on. But you would be in the meat packing. And so you knew that if you going to fix this machine that was supposed to chop off the chicken heads was going to be very dangerous. And the last two people who did it, who went in to fix this machine that chopped off the chicken heads, they came out with their heads chopped off. And so it's a very dangerous job. But because enslavement shaped the labor and the employment experience, you was going to have to go try to fix that machine and then hopefully not come out with your head chopped off like the chickens. But you had no rights, right? You couldn't say, excuse me, I'm an American worker. And if I go and I try to fix this machine, which you aren't even going to unplug because you don't want to, cut into your profits, then I might have my head cut off. And that's a very dangerous thing. It's going to make it impossible for me to make a living and my family will then suffer. You could not do that. You know who also could not do that? Enslaved Africans. And so the entire approach to work in this country is one that's been driven by labor. And free labor at that. So that was sort of the backdrop that we started this morning with. And that's important, even though it was in the moment of gratitude, it's important to recognize that today being May Day is a really big deal, particularly those of you who are getting layoff notices. And there are a lot more of you that are about to get layoff notices. And you should know this, and this is going to be a little hard to hear, but there is this concept called WARN. It's the Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act. And one of the friends of this show, who I love so dearly, I know this person in real life, and they will not come on the show because they have to maintain their anonymity. Shout out to Fly Sister. She, on Twitter, you can follow her at Fly_Sister. She noted this morning that companies are required to send out these WARN notices, the Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act notices, before they implement mass layoffs. More than 120 employers are going to be letting workers go in the month of May. More than 120 employers. So that's in addition to the tens of thousands of federal workers. Dare I say hundreds? I don't know if we're at the hundreds of thousands of marks, at least not the plural in hundreds of thousands, but tens of thousands of federal employees have been laid off. Those numbers are going to get captured in the jobs numbers that are going to come out in the next several job number releases. But these corporations, more than 120 of them are planning to let their workers go in May. In the month of May. That includes Amazon. That includes Starbucks. That includes JP Morgan Chase. That includes Mattel. And there's a list of 120. You can see this in Newsweek. It's an article called List of Companies Laying Off Employees in May. They ain't sugarcoating it. It is what it is. And they say that companies are required to send out these Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act notices before implementing their layoffs. More than 120 of them are. Companies are facing, here's why, rising costs because of tariffs and shifting consumer demand because of tariffs, causing many to evoke mass layoffs across departments. However, they say some of the other layoffs are happening as corporations seek to maximize profits. Because still, even though the country is in the shitter when it comes to our economy, these folks want to maximize profits because that's what they do. And so that's what they're attempting to do. So we're here today acknowledging May Day, which is the 1st of May, and recognizing that on an international scale, the entire world is full of people upon whose backs the profits of this world are earned. And so it is an important acknowledgement, particularly those of us who have a connection to the enslavement experience, because when we don't acknowledge that history, we don't realize what we need to prepare for. And child, do we need to prepare? And so some of the things that we need to prepare for is for the world to realize that vivacious Vivek Ramaswamy was absolutely correct. Now, you may be wondering, Lurie, what was it that you were saying that vivacious Vivek Ramaswamy was correct about? I'm going to remind you. Remember, what was it? The day was, hold on, let me scroll. December the 26th, first day of Kwanzaa, on Umoja Day. Umoja, which means unity, where we strive for and maintain unity within the family, community, nation, and race. Vivacious Vivek G. Ramaswamy issued a statement, a creed, a manifesto, whatever you want to call it. And basically, he says the reason top tech companies often hire foreign-born and first-generation engineers over Native Americans isn't because of an innate American IQ deficiency, a lazy and wrong explanation. A key part of it comes down to the C word, culture. Tough questions demand tough answers. And if we're really serious about fixing the problem, we'll have to confront the truth. And then he goes on to say what his truth is. He says the truth is the following. Our American culture has venerated mediocrity over excellence for way too long, at least since the 90s and likely longer. That didn't start in college, it starts young. And then he starts rattling off all these reasons and examples of American pop culture that demonstrate that America celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad, the champ or the jock over the valedictorian. And that country and that culture will not produce the best engineers. So he's basically like, y'all like Corey from Boy Meets World. Y'all like Stefan over Steve Urkel and Family Matters. And then he did did this whole thing with Saved by the Bell where he mixed up the characters. So it like he got slammed for that because they was like, you trying to be American. You don't even really know who our dumb Americans are. And if you're not knowing who the dumb Americans are you really American? Because that's how Americans think. And then he goes on to say, you know, I know immigrant families. And I know immigrant parents who would never let their brown kids watch that show because they brown kids is not destined for mediocrity, not like the whites. Not like the white. Has anybody seen Vivacious Vivek since? Oh, that's right. He's running for governor in the great state of Ohio. Even though his buddy and pal, because you remember it was supposed to be him and Elongated Muskrat who was running Doja together. Now, Elongated Muskrat done packed his bags. He done left the government and people's acting like that's a success and a victory. Well, really, honey, he is leaving. Elongated Muskrat is leaving the government because he done got everything that he needed. He wanted the data. He wanted the data on all Americans. He literally runs corporations that thrive and feed on data to be able to sell the data, market to you, and market items based on the data. He got everything he wanted and he fucked the economy and he destroyed the American government. And I think that's a pretty big success for a South African apartheid billionaire. Wouldn't you say? But anyway, the reason I mention Vivacious as I pull out my today's version of the Financial Times, there's an article in the Financial Times under companies and markets, and it's called Trump Advisor Fails to Assuage Fears of Leading Bond Investors. Because remember what Vivacious Vivek Ramaswamy said, y'all. He basically said Americans are stupid and they don't know a lot of things. And they front like they know things, but they're really into bravado. They're more like Biff than they are the scientists, right? And so like because he said that, again, we ain't seen hide nor hair of him. But here's the thing about when somebody speaks the truth, even if you don't like the truth, if it's true, it's going to be true. And there was a lot of truth to what Vivacious was saying. And if you remember, Vivacious was saying this because he was in the middle. He and Elongated Muskrat were championing the H-1B visa program. Remember that program was basically a program that says people who are brown, melanated, be you melanated like a Nigerian, be you melanated like an Indian. If you was an engineer, if you was smart, if you was intelligent, you is smart, you is kind, you is intelligent. If you had all them things and you was coming from another country, it was so much cheaper for these corporations to be able to give you a job than to give an American a job, in addition to the fact that you were probably smarter than the Americans because of everything Vivacious said. But even though Americans didn't like it and he got clowned for it and he got ran out of Doge, so Elongated Muskrat did all of this on his own. Oh, by the way, did y'all hear that Tesla was basically looking at HUD-hunters trying to find a replacement for Elongated Muskrat? They put this out in the Wall Street Journal, and then Elongated Muskrat was like, no, they're not. How dare you publish this bad thing about me, which made all of us believe like, oh, you ain't know, they ain't want you there no more. So they pulled that back and said, no, we're not looking for anybody else, but we're looking for somebody else. But that's what's happening with him. Anyway, going back to what Vivacious said, a truth is going to be realized whether you want it to be realized or not. If somebody is speaking a truth about you and it makes you uncomfortable, that's when you're supposed to do the mature thing and grow up a little bit and grow. We Americans didn't do that. And so now the whole world is looking at what's happening with the Trump administration. Now, under this article, where we look at what happened when one of Trump's advisors was in a room with people who know things from across the globe, and they know things beyond talking points. You ever been in a conversation with somebody who pretends that they're smarter than they are, or listen to a speech from somebody who pretends like they know more than they do, and like within the first 3 seconds, you're like, no. And remember when Michelle Obama was like, you know, sometimes we'd be in rooms with people who's supposed to be so smart, and then you realize really quickly they're not that smart. In fact, they're quite dumb. That's kind of what's happening on the global stage. So y'all know what is this man's name? Donald Trump's top economic advisor. This is according to the Financial Times. Sorry, wrong voice. Donald Trump's top economic advisor, Stephen Moran, struggled to reassure leading bond investors in a meeting last week that followed a bout of intense tumult on Wall Street triggered by the president's tariffs. Moran, who is the chair of the Council of Economic Advisors, met representatives from top hedge funds and other major investors at the White House Eisenhower Executive Office Building. Some participants found Friday's meeting counterproductive, with 2 people describing his comments around tariffs and markets as, quote, incoherent, incomplete, and one of them said Moran was out of his depth. The quotes go on. Moran got questions and oh, sorry, wrong voice. This is the Europeans. Moran got questions, and that's when it all fell apart. When you're with an audience that knows a lot, the talking points are taken apart pretty quickly. The events convened by Citigroup was timed to coincide with the IMF spring meeting because the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, is having a meeting, child. And so the Americans is trying to front to the whole world, including to the economic representatives of said world, that we got it together. We're fine. Everything's fine. Are there tariffs destroying our economy? Yes, but it's fine. Everything's fine. Wink, wink, nod, nod. And the reality is, once you get past the Donald Trump is a cult leader talking points, everybody who know actual math and who know actual science and who know economy be like, y'all stupid. This don't make no sense. According to the report, attendees of the meeting with Moran said he, quote, did little to assuage the participants about the tumult in markets and maintain the administration's line that tariffs would hurt the trading partners of the U.S. more than American consumers. Now, child, here's the thing. The American consumers are entering the chat. The American consumers are entering chat. Amina, do we have those clips ready? YouTube, y'all gonna be able to hear this. We're not doing Instagram today because we had too many clips to get to and I can't, it's too much to deal with. I want y'all to listen. This is a Trump supporter. Is a Trump supporter. In this video, he has on a red hat and he's standing in the parking lot of a Walmart and he's talking. Now he's going to say some things and you're going to hear some of the things that he's saying. It's going to be clear to you that this is exactly who Vivacious Vivek Ramaswamy was talking about. He's going to say some numbers that you going to know and I'm going to know is complete and total bullshit and don't make no sense on this side of the grave or the other. But I want you to listen because this is how a MAGA voter is now dealing with the realities of the tariffs. Everybody take a listen.
Mr. President, I'll be here at Walmart. Yes,
Walmart.
Mr. President, you put tariffs on China. I think you started out at 80% on goods that comes across the border. And then China puts 84% on
wrong numbers.
US. Then you go back. You do 125,000%. You got
125,000.
Nancy Pelosi said that we are deployables.
Deployables.
We don't got much money, and we have to depend on China to get phones, to get electronics, Mr. President.
Deployables.
Mr. President, you're going to hurt us. You're going to hurt everybody that supported you, Mr. Trump. Try to negotiate with him. We need Walmart. We cannot live without Walmart. Yes, Mr. President, I know you mean well, but you got to help us.
For many things that we knew would happen. I'm not here to say I told you so.
I am Vice President Kamala Harris. I'm here to say I told you so because that man said Hillary Clinton said we are deployables. She actually said you're deplorable. She said you're deplorable. And 125,000% doesn't actually exist. But that's what Vivacious Vivek Ramaswamy was talking about. Now, this man is in his Trump Makes America Great Again hat, talking in front of the Walmart, because he's at the Walmart. And he wants Mr. President, Mr. Trump, to understand what he has did. I assure you that the world knows what Mr. Trump and what did they say? Donald Trump's the attendees of the meeting said. This is what the Financial Times said. Moran, Donald Trump's staff member or chief, what is his title? Let me get his real title. Chief of the Council of Economic Advisors. This man said that the tumult in the markets and the pain in the markets is going to hurt the trading partners more than the Americans. Well, not according to Mr. Deployable Walmart. He is hurting, but it wasn't just Mr. Deployable Walmart. We're also seeing conversation among people who are like posting receipts of what's happening with the tariffs. I'm not going to play this clip right now, but there's another clip of this man who needs to buy some paint for his house. And he wants to buy paint. He's redoing a portion of the house. It's this type of paint that he has purchased before. The last time he had to pay for this gallon of paint, it was $75 for the gallon of paint. Now he went to go buy the gallon of paint, $160 some odd dollars for the gallon of paint. Why? Because of the tariffs. Now, if you'll notice, 160 is more than 170 twice because the tariffs are 145%. So it's going to be more than half, more than twice the amount. That's for Mr. Walmart there. And so the Americans are now seeing it. I told y'all for the past couple of weeks, y'all better stock up. Why? Because the shelves are coming empty. And what do we see now? What's today? Today's May Day. I said by Friday. So by tomorrow, Them ships that are coming in, they landed. We got 40% of the container ships empty. We got a lot of ships coming. They ain't got no cargo. They coming empty. They leaving empty. And it's not just the ships, it's the trucking as well. The truckers are talking about it. It's going to be a long, cold winter, and we heading into summer. So you know that's going to be a long, cold winter. Y'all better get them beans and rice. You better get that flour. Better get your stuff together. Better learn how to grow some things. We literally getting a whole ass lemon tree because we eat a lot of lemons. We're going to get a lemon tree under a glow lamp. That's what we're dealing with right now. Not at the Walmart, but that's what we're dealing with. And so the world is realizing the representatives of this nation that are going to meet with other nations' representatives don't know things. And you put people who their only qualifications was being white, entitled, and incompetent in the position where they are making international policy type decisions, where they have to talk to people beyond the talking points. And quickly it is realized, oh, your depth. You cannot swim in this end of the pool. You could barely dip your toes in at the kiddie end. You are not ready for prime time. And so in addition to that, as we go back to the paper, in addition to that, we're also now, hold on. Russell. Now we're looking at the trade war disrupting the economy such that the bank wins, the banks are concerned, the consumers are concerned. We're seeing that the volatility unleashed by Donald Trump's trade war has distorted U.S. quarterly growth, hit consumer-facing business, and provided a boon to banks. We're going to talk about the boon to banks later on. All I know is all of you attorneys out there who practice consumer defense law, get ready because you're about to be well busy and employed. I don't know if your client's going to be able to pay you, but you're going to be very busy because the consumer rights work that is about to take off is going to be huge. And so that's what's happening when it comes to our economy. We've got these corporations who are laying people off, who are preparing to lay people off. We've got people talking about Pete. His own mama said he's trash. Hegseth spends half of his time obsessing over his press conferences and the conversation he's going to have with the press after he comes out of the makeup room where he gets a fresh beat and a rebeat anytime he has to go out in front of a camera. We've got judges who have said you're going to have to let people go. In fact, we saw yesterday that man that they had arrested in his immigration hearing. He goes to the immigration hearing being told he's going to get a green card, ends up in handcuffs, has been held since the middle of April. He got let go yesterday. The courts are now saying all this stuff that Donald Trump trying to do in terms of equity inclusion, that can't happen. Although they did hear a case that might allow for white Christian nationalists to have public funding for public schools, which are public religious white Christian nationalist schools. That's something we're going to be watching as we move forward. But these are all things we have to be aware of. As that's happening, we've got these concerns about what's happening in other parts of the world. Now, I don't know if y'all saw it, but we have a Black American general who has basically gone on the record at hearings in front of Congress that said we need to be concerned about what's happening in Burkina Faso. I've been talking a little bit about Burkina Faso, not as much as I plan to be. The Burkina Faso is a country in the continent of Africa that is currently being led by a young brother by the name of Ibrahim Traore. I'm probably messing up his name pronunciation, forgive me, but look the brother up. He's dope. Well, after the Americans put their name in his name in their mouth, and the Americans basically said, and they kind of use this brother. I mean, could you please find me the name of the general who did that conversation about Ibrahim Traore? I thought I had it in my notes, but I don't see it. Basically, this American general, Black American, I'm going to call him Negro American for reasons. But this Negro American basically says that America needs to be concerned about Burkina Faso. What you concerned about Burkina Faso for? And they basically are saying that the leader of Burkina Faso, this young 37-year-old who did come into power on a coup. So, you know, coup is a coup. All coups ain't the same, January 6th, but he came into power and has been basically restructuring the Burkina Faso. And there's a Burkinabe. Burkinabe is the phrase I keep seeing used. I'm also probably not pronouncing that incorrectly. Oh, Langley. Okay, thank you. Yes. Shout out. I went back to the chat. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the Nubians. So Major Langley is the Black man, the Negro American who basically put Ibrahim Traore's name in his mouth. And so that has caused a lot of concern internationally. I have videos of Jamaican grandmothers in the street talking about how we are with you. We are praying with you. Now, y'all know I don't speak patois. I just speak the sound of my Jamaican mother's voice in my head. So please don't ever mistake what I do as patois. It is not. None of my accents are actually real. They're just voices that I hear in my head, which might indicate something about my mental stability or prowess. Do with that what you will. But videos of Jamaican grandmothers, Rastafarians in the street protesting on behalf of Burkina Faso. You had thousands of people swarm the embassies and swarm the palaces in the palace in Burkina Faso where Ibrahim Traore was sleeping to protect him, because the people of Burkina Faso is like, what you're not going to do here is what y'all did to Muammar Gaddafi. Do with that information what you will, which did happen under President Barack Obama. But they're essentially talking about the fact that we will defend you. There are videos of people in Ghana, a whole ass different country on the continent of Africa, for those of you who are geography deficient, saying we've been waiting our whole lives for a leader like that man. Now, the concern that a lot of folks have is that not only will they try to do to him what they did to Muammar Gaddafi, but also what they did to Patrice Lumumba. Hey, CIA, we see you. We see the records. We read it. We understand it. And so we're in a moment right now where you got BRICS, the Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa alliance, where you got almost, 45, nearly 50 additional other countries that are trying to be a part of that reorganizing effort. And some people have tried to liken it to the UN. Some say more like the G7, which would end up being like the G45 or whatever. But you are seeing a complete and total restructuring of the entire global marketplace and in international relations in a way that is awe-inspiring and breathtaking. And so we who are here in this country dealing with all that vivacious Vivek Ramaswamy told us we was going to be dealing with, it is really going to be important that we seek out news sources that are going to let us know what's happening, not just here, but elsewhere. I need us to be aware that there are relationships that should be getting cultivated. There are trade relationships that should be getting cultivated. There are friendship and communication and organizing and cultivation of relationships that should be happening across these waters. I was watching a video the other day where they were talking about how CARICOM, which is like the kind of like a UN for the Caribbean. I'm using general terms that aren't really precise in any way because I'm trying to translate this for an American audience, a primarily American audience. But CARICOM is a group of countries within the Caribbean who work together, organize together, trade together. And there was a video that was talking about the fact that there is not a free trade agreement between CARICOM and the continent of Africa. Might want to think about that, right? Especially as we see the vivacious Vivek Ramaswamy predictions come true about the deterioration of the mindset and the intellectual capacity of this country. Black Americans might need to have some conversations, might need to have some people in that space. Now, if you are, of course, one of the Black Americans who is very much not in alignment with Pan-Africanism, this part of the conversation probably is not for you. Good luck dealing with all that vivacious Vivek Ramaswamy told you all you was going to have. But for the rest of us who realize that it does not make any sense to cut ourselves off from friends, literally cousins, literally our cousins, in order to align with the people who are like Remick in Sinners, like that don't make no sense. But do with that what you will. For the rest of us, get connected to some international news sources. And I don't mean like BBC or Al Jazeera only. I mean, Al Jazeera is pretty dope, BBC, whatever. But like get connected, start reading newspapers from other countries that have similar interests as ours. And by ours, I don't mean Americans. I mean ours as Black people and people who are in affiliation and in alignment. It's going to be really important right now that we defy the mode that America is going on. I saw a report that said people who spend more time in person have less time for social media. There is a report out that looked at what Facebook was doing as it pertains to this friend situation. And I'm going to just describe this very, very briefly. Look for the article, you can find it. But basically, Facebook has a report, or there's a report connected to Facebook that basically says most Americans have 3 real friends and they have capacity for 15. So Facebook is creating kind of like an AI friendship group. Right? We have this pandemic of loneliness among men in this country. There are so many things calling our attention to the fact that we need to be in interpersonal relationships. And just going back to that report for a second, Facebook is now planning to, according to the report, create fake friends for people because the 3 friends that you have in real life aren't enough. And so it occurred to me that one of the best ways to defeat the power of algorithms, other than tricking the algorithms, which is why I ask all of y'all to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share it, and hit the notification button so that we're all connected. That's important to freak the algorithm. But the other way to disrupt the power that these people have over our lives, to disrupt the power that someone like an elongated muskrat got when he stole all of the Americans' data to feed into his AI machine so that he can make profit, one of the best ways to disrupt their power is to return to a time where interpersonal relationships mattered and mattered more than the likes and the clicks that we were getting online. And so I really want to encourage you, as the world is reorganizing, as the Canadians are like, we out. They are leaving us They're leaving Americans like somebody flees an abusive lover. As we see that like the metals that we need are no longer going to be available. As we see people like Howard Lutnick, who are high up in the Trump administration, say that their plan for Americans is we're going to bring back a factory. You're going to work in the factory. Your kids are going to work in the factory. Your grandkids are working in the factory, which is weird because when people set up those sorts of plans, they never think about what their kids are going to be doing because they don't plan on their kids working on the factories. They plan on their kids owning the factories that our kids work in. They're talking about recreating company towns on May Day. Company towns where basically you live in the town that is owned by the company. You work in the corporation owned by the company. You go grocery shopping on credit given to you by your boss, and the credit is spent in a store that's owned by the company. This is what America used to have, because again, America's concept of labor is rooted in enslavement, and that is what they are trying to go back to. Real relationships are going to matter so much more. The capacity for us to look into each other's eyes and cultivate community, especially in this era of austerity that we are going to be entering into, is going to be what is life-saving for some of us. Frankly, I think it will be life-saving for many of us. The entire world is reorganizing. It's scary, it's exciting, and it is an opportunity full of potential if we connect with our ancestors, if we heal from the negativity of too much ego, if we are willing to prioritize integrity, which is doing what's right even when nobody is looking, if we prioritize doing what's right and letting the law catch up, if we prioritize those things, as fraught with danger as this moment is, baby, the seeds of greatness are being planted. Wrong. The seeds of greatness have already been planted. The ancestors been watering them seeds. And now we're at the opportunity where we can either harvest effectively or be with Vivacious in them, or who Vivacious in them was telling us about. And I don't think that that's in anybody's interest. 866-801-8255, 866-801-TALK is the number. We got a lot to get to. I mean, how much time we got before we go to commercial? I can't do this clip, do I? We have them. Oh, I can't get to this clip. Damn it. All right, I was going to try to get to this other clip. Not going to be able to do it. I was going to say bye to Instagram, but they're not even here because we ain't do them today. But YouTube, appreciate y'all. Thank you so much for being with us as always. And stay tuned because we are going to do a live this weekend. I just don't know which day yet, but we will have a live this weekend. It'll either be Saturday or Sunday. Obviously, those are the only days of the weekend, but I'll let y'all know tomorrow when that's going to be. But yeah, y'all, this is a real good time to figure out how to love each other harder. It's a real good time to figure out how to be better as human beings. And it's a real good time to start pouring into the networks that we are going to need in order to not just survive in this era, but to literally thrive so sufficiently that what we build after, that is what our ancestors' wildest dreams was. Because they weren't dreaming about this. When nobody dreaming about it. This is not wild. It is not a dream. It's kind of nightmarish. But what we can build after, that's